I think one of the most dangerous things a person can learn is how to look okay when they aren't. Because once you get good at it, people stop asking, and after a while, you stop answering honestly even when they do. You just smile, say you're good, say you're tired, say school's been stressful, say you've been busy, anything except the truth, because the truth is harder. The truth requires explaining things that you don't even fully understand yourself. And I think that's why so many people pretend they're fine. Not because they're trying to lie, because they don't know how to explain what's actually wrong. Sometimes there isn't even one thing wrong. Sometimes it's everything. 100 little things building up slowly over time until one day you wake up and realize you're carrying more than you can handle. But when somebody asks what's wrong, where do you even start? Do you explain the thing that happened last week or the thing that happened 6 months ago? The thing you've been thinking about every single night? Or the thing that's been embarrassed you so much and it still affects you and you don't want to admit it? Most people just don't. They say they're fine. And that's the scary part. Because eventually, pretending becomes automatic. You don't even think about it anymore. You just do it. Someone asks you how you're doing. I'm good. Can't complain. Just tired. The conversation moves on. And for a moment, you feel relieved. But now you don't have to explain yourself. But later that night, you're still carrying everything. Nothing actually changed. The only difference is now nobody knows. I think one of the biggest reasons people stay quiet is because they're terrified of being misunderstood. Not ignored, misunderstood. There's a difference. Because a lot of people don't want attention. They don't want everybody feeling sorry for them. They don't want people treating them differently. They don't want compliments. They don't want sympathy. They just want someone to understand. But that's where the fear starts. Because what if they don't? What if you finally open up about something that's been bothering you for months, and somebody thinks you're being dramatic? What if they think you're overreacting? What if they think you're just looking for attention? And I think that's a fear a lot more people have than they'll ever admit. Especially now. Because somewhere along the way, people became terrified of being seen as attention seekers. And don't get me wrong, there are people online who do things for attention. But I think a lot of genuinely struggling people get caught in the crossfire. Now because they're scared to talk about anything. Because the second they do, they worry about someone's going to roll their eyes, or they think they're fishing for compliments, or assume they're exaggerating. And when you already feel vulnerable, that's enough to keep you quiet. I've noticed something strange. The people who are actually struggling often spend more time worrying about looking attention seeking than they do seeking attention. Think about that. Someone can spend weeks deciding whether to talk to about someone. Weeks. Going back and forth in their head, trying to figure out if they're allowed to feel the way they feel. Trying to decide, what if they're dealing with something? Is it something serious enough to mention? Trying to convince themselves that they're not being dramatic. Trying to convince themselves that they're not weak. And eventually they say nothing. Not because they wanted to, because silence felt safer. Nobody judges silence. Nobody calls silence attention seeking. Nobody tells silence is overreacting. So people keep things to themselves. And eventually it becomes normal. That's another thing nobody talks about. You can get used to carrying things. Not because they stop hurting, because they become familiar. And familiar pain is strange. You don't notice it as much anymore. It's like background noise. Always there, always present. But quiet enough that you just stop acknowledging it until something happens. A bad day, an argument, a memory, a random moment when you're alone. And suddenly, everything you've been ignoring catches up to you all at once. I think people imagine struggling as something dramatic, like crying every single day, or never smiling, or always looking upset. Most of the time it doesn't look like that. Most of the time it looks normal. That's why it's so easy to miss. Someone can laugh, make jokes, hang out with friends, go to school, go to work, post online, look completely fine, and still be fighting battles nobody knows about. Because being okay and looking okay aren't always the same thing. I learnt that a while ago. There was a period of my life where if you asked anybody around me how I was doing, they would have said I was fine. And honestly, I would have said the same thing. I still talked to people, still joked around, still showed up, still acted like myself. At least the version of myself everybody expected to see. But every night felt different. Every night when things got quiet, my mind would start moving. Thinking about things I couldn't change, things I regretted, people I missed, mistakes I made, questions I couldn't answer. And the weird thing is, nobody knew. Not because nobody cared, because I never gave them a chance to know. I kept saying I was fine. So why wouldn't they believe me? Looking back, I don't think I wanted somebody to solve my problems. I don't even think I wanted advice. I think I just wanted somebody to understand why I wasn't acting like myself lately. Why I seemed distant. Why I seemed tired. Why I wasn't as excited about things anymore. But instead of saying any of that, I said I was fine, because fine was easier. Fine was safe. Fine didn't require vulnerability. Fine didn't risk being misunderstood. And eventually I realized something. The more you hide that feeling, the harder it becomes to show it later. Because now people have expectations. Now you're convinced everyone you're okay. Now you've built this version of yourself that seems completely fine from the outside. And breaking that image becomes difficult. Because once people get used to seeing you a certain way, you feel responsible for maintaining it. You become the funny friend, the calm friend, the strong friend, the reliable friend, and suddenly it feels wrong to let people see parts of you that don't fit that image. So you keep performing, not because you're fake, because you're scared. Scared they'll see you differently, scared they'll think less of you, scared they'll realize you're not handling things as well as they thought. And honestly, I think a lot more people feel that way than anybody realizes. Because everybody wants to be understood. But being understood requires being seen. And being seen requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is terrifying. Especially when you spent so long pretending you're okay. I think one of the loneliest feelings in the world isn't being alone. It's feeling unseen. Because there's a difference. Being alone means nobody is there. Feeling unseen means people are there, but they don't really know you. They know the version you show them, the version that smiles, the version that says everything is fine, the version that keeps conversations light, the version that never admits when something is wrong. And after a while, that starts to feel strange. Because people care about you. You know they do. Your friends care, your family cares, the people around you care. But they can only care about the version of you they know exists. And if you spend all your time hiding the real version, you end up feeling invisible. Not because nobody is looking, because nobody can see what you're hiding. I think that's where a lot of loneliness comes from. Not isolation, disconnection. Because you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can be laughing with a group of friends and still feel disconnected. You can be talking all day and feel like nobody actually understands what's going on inside your head. And that's a horrible feeling. Because part of you wants somebody to notice, not to fix it, not to save you, just to notice. To ask twice when you say you're fine, to see through the act, to recognize that something feels different. But then another part of you doesn't want that at all. Because if they notice, then you have to explain. And that's terrifying. I think that's the contradiction a lot of people live with. Wanting to be understood, while also being terrified of being seen. Wanting somebody to ask, while hoping nobody does. Wanting help, while feeling guilty for needing it. And that's really exhausting, because you're fighting two battles at one. The thing you're struggling with, and the pressure of hiding it. People never talk about how tiring pretending can be. Not physically, emotionally. Because when you're constantly trying to look okay, you're always monitoring yourself, making sure you don't say too much, making sure nobody notices, making sure you keep acting normal. And eventually you forget what normal even feels like. You just get better at acting. And the scary thing is, the better you get at hiding things, the less likely people are to notice. Which sounds obvious, but think about it. A lot of people secretly wish someone would notice they're struggling. yet they spend every day making sure nobody can. It's almost impossible. You build walls, then wonder why nobody can see inside. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I've done it. Most people have. Because being vulnerable feels risky, especially if you've opened up before and felt misunderstood. One bad experience can make somebody shut off for years. One moment where you finally tell someone how you feel, and they laugh, or dismiss it, or tell you it's not a big deal, and suddenly your brain learns a lesson. Not necessarily a true lesson, but a lesson anyway. It learns, don't do that again. So next time you keep it to yourself, and the time after that, and the time after that. Until silence becomes your default setting. I think that's why some people become known as the strong friend. Not because they're stronger than everyone else, but because they're better at hiding things. People assume they're handling everything. People assume they don't need help. People assume they're okay. And eventually they start assuming the same thing about themselves. They convince themselves they should be able to handle everything alone. That needing support means they're weak. That asking for help means they're failing. But everybody needs support sometimes. Everybody. No exceptions. And I think social media made this harder too. Because now everybody is constantly seeing highlight reels. Everyone looks happier. Everyone else looks successful. Everyone else looks confident. Everyone else looks like they have things figured out. And when you're struggling privately, it can start to feel like you're the only one. Like everybody else got some instruction manual for life that you missed. But they don't. Most people are figuring out things as they go. Most people have insecurities. Most people have nights where they overthink, cry. Most people have things they just don't even talk about. Difference is, you see all your behind the scenes, and you only see everybody else's highlights. That's not a fair comparison, but people make it every day. I think another reason people pretend they're fine is because they don't want to be a burden. And honestly, I understand that feeling. You don't want to dump your problems on somebody. You don't want to ruin the mood. You don't want somebody worrying about you, so you keep it to yourself. Because carrying it alone feels more comfortable than feeling responsible for somebody else's concern. But here's the thing. There's a difference between being a burden and being human. Everybody goes through difficult periods. Everybody needs support sometimes. Everybody needs understanding. That's part of being a person. That's the way we are. And somewhere along the way, a lot of people forget that. They start treating struggles like weaknesses instead of treating them like normal parts of life. I think one of the saddest realizations is understanding how many people are walking around carrying things nobody would know about. The friend who seems happy, the quiet person in class, the person who's always making everybody laugh, the person who says they're doing fine. You never really know what somebody's carrying. And honestly, that's why kindness matters so much. Because you have no idea what kind of day someone's having. You have no idea what kind of thoughts they're fighting. You have no idea how close somebody is to feeling completely overwhelmed. A little kindness goes further than people think. And maybe that's why pretending we're fine is so common. Because people are scared. Scared of judgment. Scared of being misunderstood. Scared of looking weak. Scared of looking attention-seeking. Scared of being a burden. Scared of being vulnerable. Scared of being seen. But I think that's the thing people don't want. It isn't attention. It's understanding. There's a huge difference. Attention says, look at me. Understanding says, I just want somebody to know what it feels like. And those are not even the same thing. They're not even close. Because most people aren't looking for an audience. They're looking for a connection. They're looking for reassurance that they're not alone. They're looking for somebody who understands what they're carrying. And maybe that's why we pretend we're fine so much. Because every time you do it, you move a little further away from being understood. You tell people everything is okay, even when it isn't. You keep the conversation moving. You protect yourself, but you also isolate yourself. Not intentionally, just slowly. And maybe that's the hardest part, that things can't protect you from judgment, can also keep you from connection. And I think that's something worth remembering, because sometimes being understood starts with letting people see a little more of the real you. Not all at once, not with everyone, just enough. Because nobody can understand a version of you that doesn't exist. And nobody can support struggles they don't know about. Maybe the reason so many people pretend they're fine isn't because they're lying. Maybe they're just scared. Scared of being misunderstood, being judged, being vulnerable, or being seen. But maybe being seen is exactly what we needed all along. Because at the end of the day, I don't think people want attention nearly as much as they want understanding. And that's two very different things. Maybe that's why "I'm fine" has become one of the most common lies people tell. Not because they enjoy hiding things, but because it's easier than explaining what they're really feeling. And maybe one day we'll get better at telling the truth. Not because we're weak, not because we need saving, but because nobody was meant to carry everything alone.